Is CVI and ocular motor dysfunction similar, and how do I help my child? Now, first of all, this is where I still have to say, I want to see a video of your child. Now, you can look at my CVI scales and see how CVI is rated out and what range your child would be at. Ocular motor dysfunction 2 should have a scale, but the problem with ocular motor dysfunction, I look at that more as what your child physically, movement-wise, can and cannot do to get into the range of vision. In other words, let's say if I want to look over here to the right, let's say, you know, someone wanted to talk to me, or I'm looking out the window, right? I can do these things and not worry about my core movements. I'm not going to fall. I'm not going to lose my balance, right? But if I have, let's say, cerebral palsy, and I'm going to suddenly do this, and I know I'm going to lose my balance, right? I only have to lose my balance a couple of times when the intelligence side of me says, I'm not going to look to the right anymore because I'm going to lose my balance and I'm going to fall. We don't put ourselves into fall. We're capable of falling. And I know some of us feel like we're helicopter parents because our children are falling all the time. That was actually the biggest thing that I noticed with my son. Not only that he was visually impaired, but that the fact that my son, just felt like a drunk. If he fell, Graham was like backwards, forwards. And every time I was telling the doctors, my kid's falling around like a drunk. They were like, what do you mean? You know, and I'm like, the fall's not right because he didn't fall through the center. It was off. It was this. I mean, he could sit there and drink and he'd be like, you know what I mean? Like his eyes were off and I was like, no drinking and driving, stop. Because he could not coordinate these functions. But my son also had CVI. Now, the biggest misconception about CVI and ocular motor dysfunction is that they're looking for brain trauma. That's not the case. You can have coccyvalgia in the pelvis or hip subluxation, let's say, as an example. The brain is fine, and I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to have ocular motor dysfunction. Cortical visual impairment can be due to visual complexities. Like right now, I have my barnwood, right? Now, if I say glasses, 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 can you tell through that there's glasses versus on my face, right, as glasses? What's easiest for me to represent, to teach you language that you can see? You might have, so again, and this is where people make the big mistake and paint the whole room black. That's not necessary. That's more delayed visual maturation where you really need that solid background, and it's really overused. People hear CVI and they want to stick their kid in a black box. Stop. That's not functional vision. That's not how our eyes work. But I might be able to be more visually adept in my house, but I go outside and I can't handle the visual complexities. Maybe because I have blue eyes, and this is why I have divots in my head, right, is because of the squinting, because, again, I'm light sensitive when I go out. Again, that changes your environmental complexities. Now it's the structure of your eyes. And this is where I'm really about having a good physical examination on the eyes with the retinoscopy done by a pediatric ophthalmologist. Because, again, if I need glasses, right, again, Kimberly's watching. Now, I know this child wears glasses, and so does her child. And they have similar eyes. Despite the cerebral palsy, it's hereditary. But if Kimberly has her PhD in neurosciences, but at the same time, too, if she takes off her glasses, she might not be working at the computer. She might not be a friendly person by 8 o'clock at night because she hasn't worn her glasses. She might not be able to drive a car. I know Erin can't do any of those things if she doesn't have her glasses. That doesn't make her less intelligent, right? You know, Kimberly can talk me under the table as far as her prowess, but if she doesn't have her glasses, she's not capable. That has nothing to do with brain trauma. She needs glasses. And so no child should be diagnosed with CVI or autism or a lot of different things unless they have a good retinoscopy. You need to know where your child's vision is at. So if they tell you that your child can't be examined because they're nonverbal, you need to go find a new doctor, because with the retinoscopy, they can just go in and with anybody and get a reading. But it's not so easy to find. Don't let them use cards. Don't like teller cards or Cardiff cards. That's not the way that you look at vision. and so forth. And now, yes, you could have brain trauma or brain processing. Like PMG has extra folds on the brain gray matter. That doesn't mean there's brain trauma, but again, areas of the brain are taxed over, a small corpus callosum. But that doesn't mean because you have CVI, you've got to run out and get an MRI. But you have to look at all those things. Now you have to, and the same thing with ocular motor. It really is out there that you have to have damage to the brain. My son was legally blind with his CVI. His MRI is fine. So, you know, there was no trauma to the brain. Now he had an infection in the head, and that's what was causing it. But he did not have trauma and so forth. So that doesn't mean he had CVI. He still has CVI, but his brain is fine. You know, so you have, and just because a brain has trauma or muscular dystrophy or genetics, that doesn't mean you have CVI. So a lot of people go, oh, I have CVI because the brain's trauma. And there's a big difference too, the CVI or delayed visual maturation. And a lot of people lump those two together. So my CVI scales are a lot different because I look at the whole picture. But again, if your child didn't go into the correct developmental milestones, and you see this with my cognitive vision course and books and stuff, that where I describe it, but again, can your child does he have binocular vision and convergence? I'm just reviewing someone else on another group, SPML, with prolapse arches and so forth, but the kid doesn't have binocular vision or convergence. So of course we have these kind of developmental concerns. And so those are the things that I look at. We have to start looking at the whole picture. If you don't have convergence of the vision, you don't have convergence of the hands, and you don't have for your fine motor skills, and you don't have it in your gross motor skills. Convergence is a systematic response. It's not just a visual response. So those are the things you want to look at. So you can have both ocular motor and CVI, but it's about how your child organizes their vision in their environment and how you're going to be successful. And that's why I look at the videos of that particular child, because I want to see how your child is organizing their vision. And Kimberly probably should do a video, by the way, of brag rights with her daughter, but her daughter is super intelligent. To the average person, you would see a very complex little human being, and she's amazing, but she's smart as her whip, and she can sort and do all sorts of things that she's doing in school. And I say that, and it's not doing her justice. She's just super smart. She's got a super complex body, but her brain is good. So please, guys, it's about, if you go by just very simple status quo, you're really going to have areas that you're working on with your child, and you're wasting your time because it's not efficient for your child. You want functional vision as far as, but also you need cognitive vision, and that's where it needs to go. But I hope that gives you some brief understanding. You know, my CVI course is much more complex than that, and then my cognitive vision is probably one of the best courses out there ever in vision. The book alone is on Amazon, but then that really breaks down functional vision, visual acuity, the quality of vision. And I'm not saying this is a sales course, but we really just have to become more aware of where my child is at with all of it. But the vision cannot surpass the development. And that's the biggest thing you have to realize. So if the development's not there, then the vision, quality of vision won't be there, and vice versa.